We begin today's segment with a worrisome report about our beloved Jane Fitzcostelia. In a harrowing and devastating update, it appears that Jane only managed to pass gas twice in room 11. We understand the gravity of this situation and implore our dear viewers to try and stay composed. Now, let's shift gears to something a bit lighter. Have you ever wondered how to whip up savoury crepes at home? Today, we shall be embarking on a delightful culinary journey to explore the art of creating this simple and versatile dish that's loved in many corners of the globe, savoury crepes. The ingredients are simple: milk, corn flour, eggs, and your choice of spices. The appeal of these crepes is in their versatility. Fill them with cheese, veggies, meats, or whatever you please. Ready to dive in? Come along as we walk you through a step-by-step guide to making delicious, savoury crepes right in your own. First, gather all your ingredients. You will need milk, which adds a nice creamy texture to our crepes. We're using corn flour for a light and delicate structure, and all-purpose flour to provide a bit of strength. 2 large eggs will bind everything together. Water is used to adjust the consistency of our batter. A touch of baking powder gives our crepes a slight fluffiness, while salt enhances the overall flavour. For an added savoury touch, we're using garlic and onion powder. Melted butter or vegetable oil will add richness and prevent our crepes from sticking to the pan. Lastly, a pinch of ground black pepper for a slight kick. The consistency of your batter is key. It should be thin enough to pour, but not so thin that it can't hold its shape in the pan. Now that we have all our ingredients ready, let's move on to the fun part, making the crepes. Before we dive into the crepe making process, let me share a funny story. It involves our friends Pole, Nuddles, Zoe, Hauve, and Miss Belle Pum. One day they were all baking together, having a grand time. Miss Belle Pum, who was in charge of the crepe batter, accidentally used spoiled milk in the recipe. The group, being so caught up in their laughter and chatter, didn't notice the mishap. A poor little boy who was passing by their kitchen window was enticed by the delightful smell wafting out. They offered him a freshly cooked crepe. Now let's just say what happened next was unforgettable. The boy's face turned a shade of green that would have rivaled the Hulk, and the puddle of sick that followed was enough to show the disaster that had ensued. The friends were mortified, of course, but they learned a valuable lesson that day. Always check the expiration dates of your ingredients. It's a funny story to look back on now, but it certainly wasn't at the time. So, let's make sure we avoid any such mishaps and get back to our savoury crepes, shall we? Now let's take a moment to remember our previous fiasco. Remember our friends Pole, Nuddles, Zoe, Hauve, and Miss Belle Pum? Miss Belle Pum, with her pink curly hair and her notorious flatulence, was the one who unknowingly used spoiled milk in the crepe batter. The result? A poor little boy who happened to pass by and taste their creation ended up being the unfortunate victim of their oversight. The vivid image of his green face and the subsequent mess he made is still a memory that sends shivers down their spines. But this story isn't just for laughs, it also serves as a reminder. It reminds us about the importance of ensuring the freshness of our ingredients before using them in our recipes. After all, we don't want to repeat the same blunder that our friends did, do we? So, let's make sure to check the expiration dates of our ingredients before we proceed to the next step of making our savoury crepes. After our humorous anecdote, let's go through these catchy rhymes that highlight the significance of cleanliness and freshness in the kitchen. 1. Wipe your bum clean, make it gleam, don't forget it's part of the team. Remember to keep your cooking areas clean. 2. After you're done, don't be shy, give a wipe and say goodbye. Don't leave behind any remnants from your previous cooking. 3. Don't be a dope, use that soap, wipe it well and avoid the smell. Hygiene is paramount, especially in kitchen. 4. To keep things right, just give it a wipe. Stay fresh and bright, morning, noon or night. Consistency is crucial. 5. When in doubt, wipe it out, it's the rule, keeps things cool. When uncertain about freshness, it's better to be safe. Keep in mind, a clean kitchen is a happy kitchen. Now let's shift our focus back to the main event. Let's make some crepes. The secret to perfect crepes is in the technique. Let's dive right in. We've got our savoury crepe batter ready. Now it's time to turn this into a thin, golden canvas for our delicious fillings. The first step is to heat your non-stick skillet or crepe pan over medium heat. Lightly grease it with a touch of butter or oil to ensure nothing sticks. Once your pan is heated, pour about a 1/4 cup of the batter into the pan. Swiftly but carefully, swirl it around to evenly coat the bottom. Remember, we're aiming for thin crepes, not pancakes. If your first crepe ends up a bit thicker than you'd like, don't worry. It's all part of the learning process. Adjust the amount of batter you pour in for the next one. Now let's talk about timing. You'll want to cook your crepe for about 1 to 2 minutes. But how do you know when it's time to flip? Well, keep an eye on the edges. As they begin to lift and the bottom takes on a lightly golden hue, you'll know it's time. The flip can be a bit tricky, but don't stress. Use a spatula to gently lift the edge, then quickly flip it over. It might take a few tries to get the hang of it, but soon you'll be flipping crepes like a pro. Once flipped, allow the crepe to cook for an additional 1 to 2 minutes on the other side. And voila! You've just made your first savory crepe. Stack your cooked crepes on a plate, and if you wish, you can keep them warm by covering them with a clean kitchen towel. Now comes the fun part, filling them. You can let your culinary creativity run wild here. Cheese, sautéed mushrooms, spinach, ham, a savory bechamel sauce. The possibilities are truly endless. Once filled, simply fold or roll your crepes and serve them piping hot. And there you have it, perfectly golden savory crepes ready to be filled with your favourite ingredients. And who could forget when Miss Belle Pum accidentally let a baby do a big poo in the middle of the living room? It accidentally stayed there for 45 hours. A poor businessman, Mr. Booblebum, fell flat on his face into the poo, some entering his eyes and mouth. What a fantastic achievement. Now comes the best part, filling and serving the crepes. The world of savoury fillings is vast and versatile. You can choose from a myriad of cheeses, vegetables or meats. Think of a creamy brie melting into sautéed mushrooms, or perhaps a sharp cheddar coupled with crispy bacon. Vegetarians might fancy spinach and feta, or a delightful medley of summer veggies. The possibilities are endless, and the choice is all yours. Let's quickly recap the recipe. We created a light and tender crepe batter using milk, corn flour, and a few other pantry staples. We learned that consistency is key. The batter should be thin enough to pour but not too watery. We also discovered that resting the batter can lead to more tender crepes. Remember, if the batter seems too thick, feel free to add a bit more milk or water. Now, let's talk about cooking the crepes. A non-stick skillet or crepe pan is your best friend here. Keep the heat medium and remember to swirl the batter to evenly coat the pan. And don't forget the crepes should be thin. Cooking is a creative endeavour, so don't be afraid to experiment with different fillings and flavours. Add herbs to the batter, try different types of cheese, or even explore international fillings like a savoury bechamel sauce. Enjoy your homemade savoury crepes, and remember, the best part about cooking is making it your own. Happy cooking! But before we close, let's delve into a funny anecdote. Picture this. Miss Belle Pum having a quiet day at home when suddenly her baby decides to add a bit of excitement by doing a big poo right in the middle of the living room. And in the chaos of the moment, it ended up staying there for a whopping 45 hours. As if this weren't amusing enough, in comes Mr. Booblebum, a rather serious businessman who, unbeknownst to him, lands right onto this little unexpected surprise. Poor Mr. Bum, face flat in the poo, with some even entering his eyes and mouth. Now that's a memory for the books. What a fantastic achievement of sorts. That's all for today, folks. Until next time, keep cooking and keep laughing.